No, we don't want to do that yet. Um,
So, s-
my name is Dawn Monaco. I am the co-director of our grant called Reach for Transition. This is a grant under the Rehabilitation Services Administration, where we work towards educating families, professionals, and youth and young adults on transition. And this particular webinar, we do several webinars a year. This particular webinar is part 4 of a series that we started about a year ago on disability and sexuality. And this will be the last part to this series. During this presentation, I will put for you in the chat section, I guess, the link for where you can access the other parts of this series if you weren't able to join us during those. So this webinar is being recorded. Actually, let me make sure.
Yes, it is being recorded.
Okay, thank you, Rosalind. So it is being recorded, and we will place it on our website with the other part 1, 2, and 3, so that you can access that. And let me also just mention that when this is done, I will go into Eventbrite where you registered to attend this webinar, and we will send you the recording and the evaluation. Although when you exit out of this webinar, you should be routed to an evaluation. Please take the time to fill that out because your comments are very important to us, and you can actually, in that evaluation, give us some ideas on other webinars you think would be great for this population and for this topic on transition from school to adult life. And do take the time to look at our website and see the other webinars that we facilitated. I think you'll be very pleased. So a little housekeeping. There is on the right-hand side of the control panel, you'll see along there, there is a section that says questions. We are going to stop throughout the presentation for your questions, but if you want to, when you think of it, to put it in the questions box, we'll make sure that we ask that during those times. Everybody is muted under audio. And if you do need the accommodation for asking your question as opposed to typing it, under the audio button, you can change your from computer audio to phone. They'll give you a number to call in and we will allow you. Or what you can do is there's a way for you to raise your hand, or even in the questions box, if you want to tell me who you are, and I can might be able to unmute you. So we can work that out as we move forward. Also, there under handouts, there is a copy of this PowerPoint, although someone just reached out to me in the questions box and told me that they can't access it. And I actually tried myself when I clicked on it, Rosalind, and
yes,
it doesn't.
I'm going to reload it.
Okay, perfect. So that'll be reloaded for you. Because
yes,
on that PowerPoint, there'll be a slide with resources, which you'll see on the screen. But if you download the PowerPoint, you'll have that for future reference. Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow the presenter to share hers. But what I did want to do is introduce her to you. So we have Graciela Slazaransky-Poe. I hope I pronounced that right. And I have to say, I'm so thankful that she has taken time out of her busy schedule because she is extremely busy. She's going to go over in her PowerPoint with you everything she does do because I could never give it justice. But I met Graciela several years ago. We had her come to one of our regional conferences, and it was a wonderful presentation. And so I had reached out to her to ask if she could close out this disability and sexuality series with her workshop on understanding gender and sexual diversity in youth and young adults with disabilities. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow her to share hers. Hopefully this works. There we go. And welcome, Graciela. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Dawn. Hi, everyone. It's really a pleasure for me and a privilege to be able to spend some time sharing some of my experience and expertise with all of you. My name is Graciela Slesaransky Poe, and I use the pronouns she, her, and hers. I'm a professor in the School of Education at Arcadia University, and I'm the former dean of the school. And I have been back in my faculty position to be able to do this kind of work, which is what I feel more passionate about and recognize that there is a huge need. Let me see how I change my slides. There we go. So I started my career many years ago on inclusive education, originally in Argentina, where I come from, but I have been in the States for 29 years. So at the Institute on Disabilities at Temple University, with a deep passion for inclusive education and creating spaces for everyone to learn together, so we learn to live together. My real mentors and teachers are many of you who are family members, I would say mostly moms, but some dads as well, who included me in their journey towards including their children in school, pre-K to 12. And I have a tremendous respect for their work and the lessons that they have taught me. And through this understanding on how to collaborate with schools, I was able to build a framework which was extremely helpful for me when my son, who is now 18 years old, but at that time he was 3, so 15 years ago, invited us to think about gender in ways we have not had before. As I was learning, and I will share what I learned and what research says, etc., about gender diversity, I became aware through my own research that there is a very high incidence of children with and adults with disabilities in general, but mostly those who are in the autism spectrum, who are also on the gender spectrum. So before I start digging into the content of the presentation and the terminology that continues to be evolving and changing as we learn more and more, and as we create spaces for individuals to claim their own identities, I'm curious to know who is in the audience. So, Jasmine, if we can go to the pool and see us presenters, if they are able to tell us who they are, that will be wonderful. I don't know if I do that or you do that.
No, that would be Rosalind. Are you able to do that?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Do we have a poll to
We
see
have
who
the
is in the
poll.
audience?
Give me a second.
Sure. You know, in the meantime, I continue, and then we go back.
Okay.
I always say, I'm going to try to imagine this without you seeing me. I'm going to try to use my communication to explain that. But I do this work all over the world, really. And I always start by saying that if we were to imagine, if we are in a large room and To my right, where the wall is, we have a sign that says very comfortable. All the way to the left, where we have a sign that says not comfortable at all. And I say, if we were to be able to line up, all line up in a line, and those who feel very comfortable with the topic we are going to discuss today come towards my right, and those who feel less comfortable or not comfortable at all go towards the left. We are all going to line up in a different place of this comfort continuum. And similarly, if we think about our levels of knowledge about this particular topic, I'm sure there are people who are participating in this webinar who are even more knowledgeable than me and will go all the way to the very knowledgeable. And some of you who may be curious about this topic and are engaging with it for the first time and will go towards the not knowledgeable at all. Again, we will have this, imagine this visual continuum of everyone standing or sitting where they are in this continuum. And the truth is, there is no right place to be. The right place to be is where you are right now. And my challenge and the opportunity I offer to you is that I meet you wherever you are without judgment. But I hope that at least at the end of this webinar, oh, the poll is there, that we all have made, hold on the poll so I finish this idea. Yeah.
Yeah, hold on, give me a second. I meant to launch it, so I just now.
Okay.
Would you want people to answer it now, or should I?
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
So what I was saying is there is no right place to be. Take inventory of where you are. Really think about where do I feel in this continuum of knowledge and comfort level. And I really hope that by the end that we all have moved a little bit towards feeling more comfortable and more knowledgeable. Okay, let's go to the poll now, and I'm curious to know who you are. Can we launch it now?
Can we launch it, Rosalind? Let me see if I can. I guess, Rosalind, did it already close?
Okay, we are going to forget about the poll.
Okay, so let's just continue.
Okay, but I don't see now. Sorry for the technical.
That's okay. Let's see.
But I don't
Let's
see.
go back to sharing.
There we go.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. So let me share with you briefly how this introduction to the topic of gender and gender diversity started for us in my family. So I have 2 kids. My daughter Vanessa, who is 21, and my son, who is turning 18 next week. So when my son was 3, this is 15 years ago, he put a blanket on his head and he said that he was a girl. And at the beginning, we were just supportive of this idea. We said, cool. What do you say when a 3-year-old puts a blanket or pretends to be a girl? We always say, cool. You can pretend to be whoever you want to pretend. But this pretend became a little bit more than just a few hours of the day. So many years ago, a friend of mine who has 2 now young women, but at that time young girls, who love to play with Disney princess dress-ups and high heel shoes, and had a collection of American dolls and Barbies and Bratz girls and etc. Noticed that Vanessa, my daughter, didn't have any of that. So when the girls didn't want to play with them anymore, brought them to my house, and Vanessa looked at them and say thank you, but really push them to the side and never really play with that. But when our son discovered that when he was very, very young, he really appreciated and enjoyed dressing up as a princess and dancing to the music of perhaps Disney movies, and he was a very talented dancer. As happens with so many families when we have guests over, I noticed that my son will give a show, and I noticed that the happier he was, the more uncomfortable everyone around him was. So I began to pay attention that the way in which kids play with gender, even though I didn't have the language at that time, really follows a double standard pattern. On one hand, I have Vanessa, who was what we will call a tomboy. I identify as a tomboy as a child, who was free and even encouraged to engage in what we will consider more masculine behaviors. She was an athlete. We all cheered for her. She was an athlete in high school as well. And that was perfectly fine. Not only it didn't give us pause, but it was something we encouraged. But when Adrian tried to engage in activities or have preference or interest that really crossed that, in the invisible line, where his interests were more feminine, it created a lot of difficulties around the people in our lives. Again, this notion that the more he embraced that female persona, the more uncomfortable everyone was, and began to teach us how could we better parent Adrian to make sure that he was a boy. So at that time, again, there was a long time ago, we didn't have the level of information and knowledge we have now. Everything I could find online was really troubling and concerning. If I Google young boy likes dress up, there were all this information about reparative theory, don't allow him to, about overprotective mothers and absent dads. I noticed that we didn't fit that profile. My husband was very involved. I did become an overprotective mom as a result of how society was treating my son. And there was a lot of information about victimization and suicide, which really, really concerned me. So through speaking with different professionals, someone mentioned at that time the diagnosis of gender identity disorder. And coming from a disability studies perspective and being an advocate for people with disabilities, and a passionate about disabilities rights movement, when I saw the word disorder, I was really thinking that that didn't capture what was going on. Because as we learn from people in the disability community, there is no disorder on a disability. The work doesn't have to be done on the person with the disability, but rather on everyone else. Because if we were to have ramps and elevators and affordable care and personal attendance and accessibility and accommodations everywhere, the disability wouldn't be a problem. It's not the disability is not the problem, but rather the obstacles and barriers that people with disabilities face on a daily life. So coming from that perspective, with the gender identity disorder, which was later changed in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is what is considered to be the Bible for professionals to diagnose individuals, which is short for DSM. So the current edition has changed that diagnosis to gender dysphoria precisely because it's not really a disorder. And in thinking about how do we communicate and educate our communities about the many different ways our kids could be boys, girls, or whatever they are, and how the work needs to be put on everyone else to make room for them to feel affirmed and comfortable. I have here a quote from a mom, Lori Duran, who has a child who is also gender nonconforming, and she started working on a blog many years ago called Raising My Rainbow, and now she also published a book. And like many of us did, she wrote a letter to her school, elementary school, when her rainbow was going to go in. And this is just two sentences from the letter to point to the fact that we need to work on the other people to make themselves comfortable and accepting. So I'm going to read the quote from Lori and says, "My sweet son isn't trying to make anybody uncomfortable. He's trying to make himself comfortable in a body and a soul that don't always feel in alignment." Imagine that feeling. So at that time, when I didn't have the language on how to explain these double standards and also how to become a supportive and affirming mother, I remember asking myself and asking my husband, do you think that Adrian is gay? And by asking that question, I now know that I was mixing and conflating three very important constructs that are related, but one doesn't determine the other, and they are not the same. And those constructs are body or sex, gender identity and expression, and sexuality. So, because I know that we are in this continuum of knowledge, I'm going to assume that not everyone is familiar with these concepts, and I would like to explain them to you. So, body or sex is biological, is what we are born with, and includes physical attributes such as sex chromosomes, hormones, internal reproductive structures, and external genitalia. When a parent is expecting a baby and want to know the gender, even though it's really the sex of the baby, there are procedures such as an ultrasound where a technicians really look in between the legs to see what's showing there. And it's through the external genitalia that a baby is assigned at birth whether they are female or male. But the reality is that it's not a binary, it's not whether they are one or the other. There is a continuum of possibilities. What we are most familiar is with male and female, but they are babies who are born with ambiguous genitalia, where at the time of birth it's not possible to clearly say male or female. And those babies are called intersex. In the past, the procedure was to correct externally, thinking that that will help box kids into this false binary. But we have learned through the advocacy of the intersex community that sex includes all the other elements is not just what is showing between the legs. So, just to clarify, intersex means a person whose biological sex is neither clearly male nor clearly female, or whose physical sex exceeds our binary sex categories. And then we have gender. And gender is one's internal sense of being a girl or woman, boy or man, both or neither. Gender is socially constructed. What we allow boys and girls, or we consider is okay, boys, girls, to do is purely socially constructed. Is relies upon when and where. For instance, when I was growing up in Argentina, I loved to play soccer, but girls couldn't play soccer. So I played with the boys. And yet, here, when my daughter turned 4, people were saying, have you signed her up for soccer? So again, that shows you how is place relative, and also it changes over time. If we think about the roles that dads have now in rearing children, it's very different from what it was many years ago. So that is what it means that is socially constructed. And it's also learned through social and cultural processes since birth. The moment we know what is between the legs and we assign a sex, we immediately think that the gender will be in alignment with that sex. And we have now this new commercial fad called gender revealing parties, where we are making such a big deal out of what the gender of the baby is going to be without really understanding what gender is. And again, we used to think that gender was a binary, where you were either a boy or a girl. However, we now know that there is a broad variation in which individuals experience and express gender, and it's really a continuum. So we have gender. Each of us have a gender identity, and gender identity refers to one's internal, deeply felt sense of being girl, boy, somewhere in between, or outside of these categories. No one could tell us who we are, and no one who can teach us to be of a different gender. Um, Many individuals identify with the gender that aligns with their sex, and I think there is in a slide, we call that cisgender. I'm getting ahead of myself. And some other individuals identify as gender non-binary, gender queer, transgender, and there are many other denominations. I want to pause and explain a little bit about gender queer. Queer was a term that used to be used in ways that were negative and offensive. And right now, or in the past, I would say 10, 15 years, the queer community has re-owned with a lot of pride the word queer, and many identify as gender queer. So we have our gender identity, and then we have our gender expression. And the gender expression refers to the ways in which we communicate to the world our gender identity. And we do that through, I mentioned my name and my pronouns as a way of saying this is who I am. Through my clothes, my hairstyle, mannerisms, speech, body language, social interactions, activities, etc. If you were to see me, you're going to probably see that I'm wearing pants, and you will very rarely see me wearing, or I would say almost never seeing skirts or maybe dresses. I have a masculine gender expression, but that doesn't take away with the fact that I identify as a woman. And our gender expression also, there is a continuum of possibilities ranging from feminine, masculine, and a different combination, androgynous, etc. So we have our body, we have our gender, and then we all have a sexual identity or sexuality. And sexuality is considered an essential and natural characteristic of all people. It begins to develop in early childhood and continues over the course of one's lifetime. And something to remember, all human beings are sexual beings. People with disabilities are sexual beings. So we have our sexuality, and we also have, all of us have a sexual identity. Some people call orientation. I mentioned before, the language is changing. I'm noticing the use of the term identity more than orientation because it's who they are. And our sexual identity refers to whom individuals are attracted physically, romantically, or emotionally. Current research indicates that sexual orientation or identity exists along a continuum of emotional and sexual attractions. And it ranges from what we call heterosexual people or straight, individuals who are attracted emotionally, romantically to people of the same sex or same gender, and we call that lesbian or gay, to both bisexual, to none, we have individuals who are asexual, and that's still a sexual identity. And there, I see youth coming with new ways to claim their identities, and we are hearing words such as pangender, pansexual, omnisexual, etc. Language is constantly evolving as we learn about the different ways people name and claim their identities. And you have seen, I'm sure you have seen, at least the LGBT, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. And that perhaps is when I asked the question early on about Adrian's gender expression being so feminine. I immediately make a connection with imagining I could know at age 3 what his sexual identity was, completely off base. But when we clump together LGBTQIA, etc., we are conflating sexual and gender identities. And for those of you who don't know, I'm going to read the other ones: L, lesbian, G, gay, bisexual, transsexual, Q for queer or questioning, those who are in the process of questioning about their identities, not us questioning what they are, but themselves questioning. I is for intersex, A is for asexual, and also for allies. And the list continues, and I make an effort to include as many letters as possible, so we, as a reminder that we are still learning and these concepts are still evolving. So what does transgender mean? We use the word transgender as an umbrella term which describes a wide range of identities, expressions, and experiences. It includes those whose sex assigned at birth doesn't match their gender identity or expression. I'm going to explain that. Let's imagine that the child is assigned male at birth because in between the legs there was a penis. And yet this child begins to communicate that they feel they are in the wrong body because they feel that they are a girl. So that is what transgender means. Transgender is also used to encompass anyone whose identity or behavior falls outside of stereotypical gender norms, which sometimes are referred as to gender non-binary, non-conforming, gender variant, gender fluid, or trans. Something about gender non-binary. Gender non-binary is an identity that individuals claim when they cannot choose male or female. And it's something we need to pay attention to because we are finding that that category is really growing. Trans Equality, which is an organization that does a lot of provides a lot of services and supports for the trans community, had recently, 2 years ago or 3 years ago now, had done a survey of transgender adults, and 28,000 transgender adults 18 or older responded to that survey, and they have found that a third of them, 33%, identify as gender non-binary. 5 years prior to that, they had another survey and only 5% identify as gender non-binary. And I consider that our next frontier in terms of really breaking the binary and accommodating those who don't identify, who cannot identify with the boxes that we socially constructed. And the other term I want, not all gender conforming individuals consider themselves to be transgender. That's something important to know. And cisgender is a term that you're going to find more and more present in conversations and refers to those individuals whose sex assigned at birth matches their gender identity. So I consider myself a cisgender woman. My sex was female at birth and I identify as a woman. So I am a cisgender woman. The next slide contains a very nice graphic explanation of these complex concepts that I tried to explain to you. And I'm looking at the time and I need to speed up a little bit. But before I do that, I want to ask if there are any questions that you would like me to answer at the moment.
So if you have a question, you can type it in the questions box and I'll read it to Graciela. I know this is a lot of information. It can be a little confusing, so please don't be shy.
Okay, so how about if I continue and we have another placeholder for questions.
Okay.
And we can, unless we see, do you see any hands?
I don't see anything now, so let's just continue and we'll see maybe at the end.
Wonderful. Okay, so how do we know that a child may be transgender or gender non-conforming or gender non-binary? It's really important to listen to what they are saying, what they are communicating to us. If they are expressing that they are trapped in the wrong body or that they think that they have swallowed, some kids say they swallow a girl or a boy, they are directly telling us what is going on. And it's not once in a while. Professionals use these three terms: consistently, insistently, and persistently, to really identify those kids and adults who communicate that their body is not reflective of who they really are. It's important to know that children as young as age 2 may show features that include gender dysphoria. And gender dysphoria is really rejection and a lot of feelings towards their body parts that don't belong there based on their gender identity. Many express a wish to be of the other gender. They're very unhappy about their physical, what the body is, and how it functions. And they may prefer clothes, toys, and games that are commonly associated with the other gender and prefer playing with peers who are of the other genders. So what do we do? Well, there are professional standards of care, and included is the link for the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, and the standards of care are clearly delineated. Once a child is by a team diagnosed as transgender, the recommendation is to begin the transition process. And the transition process, the first stage is called social transition. And is the transition of the gender expression, the way they look, just superficially. So the way they look, for instance, the clothes they wear, or their name and pronouns, or their hairstyle, to reflect their gender identity. I'm going to show you a quick video. Did it start? No. That of Ryland's family, who put this together to educate the community and the world at large on what it means to have a transgender child. And also, they really mention and explain each of the different steps they have taken to support Ryland's social transition.
I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music. And it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing hallelujah. Hallelujah. Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to her kitchen chair, and she broke your throne, and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. 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 Baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked this floor. You know, I used to live alone before. And I've seen your flag on the march.
Please, if my sister living tonight is gonna flowers.
Hallelujah. 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 Well, there was a time when you let me know what's really going on below, but now you never show that to me, do ya? But remember when I moved in you, and the holy dove was moving too, and every breath. Woke up in London yesterday, found myself in the city near Piccadilly. Don't really know how I got killed. I got some pictures on my phone, new names and numbers that I don't know. Address to places like Abbey Road, take turns tonight, night turns to whatever we want. We're young enough to say, oh, this has gotta be the good life. This has gotta be the good life. This could really be the good life, good life. I say, oh, this feeling that you can't fight. The city is a fire night. This could really be a good life, a good, good life. To my friends in New York, I say hello. My friends in LA, they don't know where I've been for the past few years or so. Paris to China to Colorado. Sometimes there's airplanes I can't jump out. Sometimes it's bullshit that don't work now. We have got our stories, but please tell me what there's to complain about. When you're happy like a fool, let it take you over. When everything is out, you gotta take it in. This has gotta be a good life. This has gotta be a good life. This could really be a good life, good life. I say, oh, this feeling that you can't fight. The city is a fire night. This could really be a good.
My name is Violet Michael Lincoln. I'm a transgender kid. I'm one of the first transgender kids. I am 6. I'm a cool kid. My sister is Beverly. I was a girl and now I'm a boy. My mom and dad and my I'm the happiest I ever been in my whole life. Thank you to my parents, Julie and Joe. Thank you to Harvey Milk for helping the world be a better place.
Oh, this has gotta be a good life. This has gotta be a good life. This could really be a good life, good life. I say, oh, this feeling that you can't fight.
Okay. I see. No. Yes, I see a question. Is that video
Yes,
on
she wants,
YouTube?
that
Yeah.
person wants to know if that's on YouTube.
Yes, yes, it's freely available on YouTube. Yes.
And Graciela, I'm not sure, I can't remember if you're going to address this, but you know, Rylan was young there, and I know that once puberty hits, that's a really significant time for that community because their body starts to um, develop in the gender that they're not identifying in. Correct?
Yes,
I mean, are you?
that's correct. I wasn't, but thank you for asking that question. I was hoping it will come in a question. So if you remember, I share with you the standards of care. So in that case, there is a team of professionals who works very closely with the family. And when the child is identified as transgender or having gender dysphoric, which is the term, the professionals work with the family to delay puberty. So puberty doesn't happen in the body that was not matching their gender identity. So there is a period of time when puberty is almost beginning, where puberty is delayed or blocked, and then after that time, the individual goes through puberty with the support of hormones, testosterone, or whatever it is, whether they're transitioning into their identity of female or male. And so it's a period of blocking it and then transitioning or having puberty in their gender. And I'm sure that generally raises a lot of questions, and if there are questions we can answer at the end, but I think it's important to know
Thank you.
that intervention, it helps because reverting or changing the gender after puberty is much more taxing in all kinds, physiological, psychologically, physically, and financially, than being preventive and block that puberty prior to. If the family was fortunate to be able to identify this before onset of puberty. So how does it connect with disability? Well, all the information I have provided applies to individuals with disabilities as well. We mentioned that people with disabilities are sexual beings. People with disabilities, we all have gender identities and expressions. We all have sexual identities or orientations. And it's important to recognize that there is a very high incidence of people with disabilities who are members of the LGBTQ community, or should I say differently, because some of them are isolated and they cannot be member, but who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, etc. I'm going to keep going so we have the questions at the end, because I don't see any hands raised or any questions typed. So what are some of the experiences of gender diverse students and their families in schools? I have learned that many families feel the need to prioritize. Let's say we have a student who is in the autism spectrum, and the family said, oh, I cannot bring gender because they are already servicing or offering services for autism. I don't want to demand so much of the school. Both needs are important to be addressed and supported. It's a false dichotomy that we can have to choose whether it's gender or disability. We need both, and if there is another one, we need all of them. So I'm going to share in the next slides what schools could do to support students and families. And I know Dawn wanted to share something with regards to how to include these supports in the IEP.
Yeah, so what I wanted to make sure is that, do we want to do it now or should I wait? I'm sorry.
No, if you, no, I'm inviting you. I think this is a
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I do want to make sure that this is part of the student's needs. So it should be addressed in the IEP, and especially if we see, bullying around this. Um, it's just a team discussion at the IEP table of which the parents are equal members. And it's definitely something that should be brought up and addressed, whether it's in goals and objectives or in some counseling or even in programs school-wide on acceptance and individuality. So it absolutely can be addressed, but we want parents and professionals to understand it can be addressed in the goals and objectives section if that is a need of the student. So certainly if anyone has any questions about that, we can talk about it, but I did want to make that point when we talk about this.
Yes, thank you for that. So in many cases, if there is not a prior disability eligibility category, many schools are including in the section of other health impairment to be able to do make accommodations, or students have section 504 plans to accommodate restrooms, gym, etc. There is a lot of bullying and victimization happening in schools, which unfortunately is making families choose to homeschool their kids. And I understand that is important for the well-being, or we think it's important to protect them, but it takes away from educating everyone else in the community that there is a need to work on our own biases, um, and really create spaces. I'm just looking at the time and we are almost out of time. So I'm going to very quickly go through what schools can do. From an educator's perspective, it's absolutely imperative that we engage in culturally relevant professional development, and really seeing this as an opportunity to educate the community. Just like with anything we do around disabilities, we need to change the narrative and draw from an asset-based, resource-based models to recognize that people with diverse identities are strong, resilient, and able. With regards to schools, it's important that, again, we offer professional development and we educate. These are new topics, that we create affinity groups, that we include in the curriculum materials and pedagogies that are affirming and supportive of diverse identities, and that we identify adults who are visible and outspoken allies. If possible, if they feel safe to be out. So for instance, I'm going to show you some of the pictures I have in my office. This is one of my mentor, Colleen Tomko, piece of art. I have these. So in this way, I tell my students, yeah, this is a safe place to come. And I love these ones. There is so much graphic art around the LGBTQ community, celebrating LGBTQ and also disability. At the last pages, when these become available, the last pages has resources in general with regards to gender, and then resources that overlap with disability, gender, and sexuality. There is the results of a study, which I thought it was interesting. And lastly, additional readings about the intersection of disability, gender, and sexuality.
So I apologize for not having the document up. There was some technical difficulties with that. So what I'm going to be doing is giving you my email address. So please, for those of you who want a copy of the presentation, which also has the resources at the end, email me and I will send that out to you. And again, I apologize for that. Does anyone have any other questions? Graciela, who was the artist again that you just mentioned? Because I think that artwork was great.
I'm going to type it. Can I type? Colleen Tomko. She's a mom, and she's an artist.
How do you spell it?
COLLENTOMKO.
Okay.
Colleen Tomko, and she has it's called The Parent Side. On Google it online. She has a lot of amazing artwork. And as we wait for the questions to come, I'm just going to celebrate her and put it there. I don't know if the name is showing. No, it doesn't.
So, no questions from anyone around this topic? I mean, I think that it's a lot of information. You know, I think it's important for, as Graciela mentioned earlier in the presentation, the reason why we wanted to include this in our sexuality and disability series is because there is a high percentage of youth and young adults with disabilities who do identify differently. And so we wanted to really educate on that so that we understand more. Let's see, is there a question here? Oh, so someone is just saying thank you. Where can we learn more about how puberty is stopped through the transition?
Again, in the standards of care, there is a lot of information there. The link will be included, or I can give you, let me put that slide back up so people can note. Let me see, I'm trying to go to present. Here. So www.wpath.org. There is plenty of information on the internet, but make sure that come from reputable sources.
Okay, so I did just, I don't know if that worked, but I did just share that.
And there are many books that have been written in these past 5 years for family members. Most of them are not necessarily around this intersection that we are focusing on today about gender and disability, but there is a lot of information for trans kids, and that information will be helpful also for people with disabilities.
Yes.
And then if you would like, I can send you some are included in the document, but if there are specific questions, if you want to forward them to me, I will be happy to answer.
Sure, I can do that as well. So I did provide my email. So if anyone has, other than the PowerPoint, if you need more information, I could forward that along to Graciela and she can reach out to you. So I do see another question. The Ultimate Guide to Sex and Disability is a great tool. Are you familiar with that, Graciela?
No, I am not, but I will look. Oh, yeah, I will take a note of.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. She said,
and there is also. I'm sorry.
She said it's by Corey Silverberg.
Yes, it sounds really familiar.
Okay.
Wonderful. And there is an old issue of the newsletter Impact that the whole issue was dedicated to disability and sexuality.
Wonderful. I think we're seeing a lot of that now, which is great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one, I always like to use resources written by self-advocates. One of the links, when this becomes available, I'm going to show you the page in case you want to take note until it becomes available. I was very impressed reading.
So here you go. So for those of you, you could even take a picture of the slide if you
Um,
want.
So here is the impact newsletter, is the second bullet. LGBT and disability. And the last one, a handbook for and by autistic people, relationships and sexuality.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That was really, it has a whole section on being queer and autistic. And I'm using the term autistic because that's the way they refer.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are some interesting, I'm going to move to the next one, additional readings on social justice for disability rights, and also that recently the Americans, this is important to know, Americans with Disabilities Act cannot exclude gender dysphoria. So accommodations need to be provided under ADA as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Great. So if we don't have any more questions, I want to remind everyone that the evaluation, Rosalind included it in the chat box as well, but you should be forwarded to it when we exit out here. If not, I'm also going to send it through Eventbrite. So you'll get it there as well with the recording. So please, if you don't mind, take the time to complete that. It's not long because we do want your comments. So, Graciela, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to help us out. It is wonderful as usual, chock full of information. I will be sharing her PowerPoint with those of you who email me. And I want to just say have a great day, everyone. And Graciela, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been my pleasure.
Have a good day, everyone. Hope this was helpful.
Bye.